uh, cosmetic decoration. There's a lot of, the buildings are quite what I call honest. In other words, everything about those buildings serves a function. So they're very, but that's what also makes them beautiful, because there's a famous architect in the 20th century who said form follows function. And in this case it truly did. So at first I was, you know, and the other problem, it's not really a problem, it's a characteristic of the way my studio designs, is we don't start by drawing a plan. We start by having an image of a three-dimensional form. And so when I sit down to begin a project, I don't start with a plan. I start with a big drawing, and it's a view of me standing across the river looking over at this project. And so I spent some of the biggest drawings I've ever done I did for this project, because it was a part of China that I wasn't familiar with, and so I literally had to draw it to imagine it. And so the buildings, and now we're pretty far along in the design now, and it is what I imagined it to be, actually. It's like the drawings, those first drawings we did. And the other sort of magical thing was that actually my client gave me a book. It was written by another architect who had taught in the university, and then had come, when he was an older man, he moved to Guilin, and he wrote a book. And the book was just, the drawings in the book were the most beautiful drawings I've ever seen done by a Chinese architect. And so I literally sat down and I said, can I draw this well? Can I draw like this person? And so I sat there and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and I think I learned as much about how to draw on that project that I've ever learned from anything. And so the project has a special meaning to me. You know, I'm not a young person anymore, but from this project I've learned that it's not too late. It's never too late to learn something new. And so the tower on the mountain and the river, well, those are the three things that really symbolize, they're the cultural symbols of Guilin. The mountains, the tower, and the river. And of course, today, it's, you know, all the buildings are not designed by the people anymore, they're designed by architects. So, and there's not many architects that are willing to design over 100 buildings that are different. Most architects want to design one building and then change the dimensions and then repeat it over and over and over again. It certainly is a lot easier to do that. So a lot of our projects are quite different. They're very modern buildings. They serve one purpose, like they're an office building, or they're a shopping mall. But Taishan Lijiang, it will be 100 years from now, that place will still be there. at least I believe it will be, because it will become part of the cultural evolution. And not many architects get to work on things that become landmarks, cultural landmarks. Tall buildings become iconic landmarks, but they never become cultural landmarks. You have to create a place for people, and then the place has to be, everything in that place has to be at the scale of a human being. And so the stones you walk on, the wood that's used to build the buildings, the details in the windows, the roofs, all have to look as if they were, you could hold them in your hand. And it's very different than the gray and glass curtain walls of the high-rise buildings. You never get confused about those. Those are made by machines, and not by hand. And I think people appreciate a handmade environment, even though it is designed by an architect today and not by them. But that's what makes it so difficult, and also which makes it extraordinarily rewarding to work on a project like that. So we have a very good client. We have an extraordinary site. We have a good team of designers who are very passionate, and led by a young woman, Anna Fu, and she's put a lot of effort into this, as have I. But I think a lot of the credit should go to Anna and her team, because it is a lot of work, and that's why, you know, when I came to China, I worked on Shinton-D, and people asked me, well, why aren't there more Shinton-Ds in the world? And I said, because no one wants to work that hard. I mean, it literally took thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, and most architects and developers don't want to invest that kind of time and effort. And in our case, we have a client who has been very supportive, and we've been able to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And I think that when we finish the project, the quality of the experience, it's really about creating an experience so that people that go there will come back time and time and time again. They won't just make one visit. If they live there, they'll visit there at least once a week. And if they've come there as a visitor, they'll stay. And if they come one day, I'm sure they'll come back the next day. And then they'll come back the next year. I just spoke about that, by the way. But I think we are also in addition to learning from the local architecture, there are elements that are quite modern in the architecture, and we can do things now that we couldn't do 100 or 200 or 300 years ago. So we can have bigger balconies that cantilever further over the water. We can have bigger overhangs to shelter people who are walking. We can have beautiful places. We have part of the project is a cinema, which will allow people to come in the evenings and to be entertained. We have an amphitheater. We have several larger restaurants along the river. We have smaller restaurants in the interior of the spaces. We have a bar street. We have a food street. We have a street it's like a market, so it has lots of things that are locally made. So there's really And we have places for children, and we have places for young adults, and we have places for old people like me, but above all, I think the one thing that this project will certainly have in common with our other projects, which are in the same nature in terms of creating a cultural entertainment attraction, the place will be romantic, and at night you'll see a lot of people there that are there because they want to meet other people, and particularly young people who are not yet married. And it'll be a favorite place to go and take a beautiful friend to dinner, and or many friends to dinner, and have something to drink, and there'll be local food, but there'll also be food from around the world, and I think that's what the new generation wants. They don't want just traditional Chinese. They want to be they want to know they're in Guilin, but they also want to know that they're living in, the beginning of the century of China, which is the rise of the middle class. And, the middle class in China will soon be the largest middle class in the world by Western standards. And the people that will go to this project will, I hope, be ordinary people, and not just people with money, and not just people that have that are staying in the hotels, but people from all around, the local people as well as people from 2 or 3 hours away, as well as the German or the American or the Spanish person who's flown in. Because Guilin is certainly an internationally known attraction, and this project will certainly help make that even more important to the rest of the world. So again, I think it will be what we imagined it to be, and that's always rewarding to have an idea and have a client who supports the idea, and then be given the time and the resources to realize that idea. Of course, the challenge is meeting your own expectations. It's like it's almost as if you have to sometimes, in the middle of a project, you wonder, is this really going to be as good as I want it to be? And then so you have to sort of stop and say, yes, it's going to be as good as I want it to be. Because I'm going to show up to work every day, and I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to make sure it's as good as I can make it. And then you get over the fear of not being able to, one of the problems of having been the architect for Shinton D is everybody thinks you can't do it. You'll never do something better than that. And I think this project will, I think it will be better, actually. Because I've got more experience now, and I've got colleagues that have been working with me for over 10 years that have developed a lot of special talents for creating a place like this. So I think that it will be better, and I'm not sure when it opens, but I think it's within a year and a half or so that I'll be there and get to walk down the street and sit by the river, and hopefully I'll have one of my grandchildren with me, although I don't have any yet, but I'm still hoping. Anyway, it's it's an opportunity to create something quite remarkable, and I think we will be able to do that. Okay.